Hello and welcome back. Okay, a tenant has passed the credit checks and now we'll move on to setting up their tenancy. So a tenancy is a deal file that brings the landlord, the tenant and the property together. This enables you to carry out all the functions you need, such as printing or digitally signing a tenancy agreement, managing rent, inspections, work orders, etc. A new tenancy is created via the Add menu. But in our case, let's go back to the tenant that we were working with earlier, and we'll continue our workflow by clicking on step 3. The contract menu presents several options. Managed is where you would collect recurring rent on behalf of the landlord, and a let only is just where you would collect the initial rent before the tenant moves in. In our case, let's choose a fully managed tenancy. Select the contract start date. Select statutory periodic if the tenancy is on a rolling contract. Choose flag up for renewal if you want this tenancy to appear in your renewals list in the terminating tenancy section, and selecting end tenancy will just shut the contract down when the tenancy's ended. Now, why would you use this option? Let's say, for example, it's a short holiday let and you've maybe collected all of the fees up front, for example for 2 weeks, and you know that the tenant will definitely vacate on a certain date because another tenant is about to move in. So the tenancy will just simply shut down. The rent usually starts from the same date as the contract start date. Now, if you're entering a retrospective tenancy, please refer to the respective tutorial. Next, I'll show you how the pro rata rent feature works. Okay, so the tenants moved in on the 9th, but they wish to pay the rent on the 1st of every month. So what we're going to do is start the rent to recur from the 1st of the following month, but the system will automatically calculate a difference from the 9th to the 1st and charge a pro rata rent. And as you can see, this system's created a charge for the 20 days. Rents are usually charged on the rent due date, but the system's able to raise the rent up to 2 weeks in advance. So for example, if a tenant keeps paying early, this will just raise the rent in advance that will allow you to collect it a bit easier. Enter how much deposit is receivable. Choose the inspection frequency. The first inspection date is usually the date of the check-in, or for example when the first interim inspection is due. Specify the management fee amount that will be deducted from the rent, and the landlord payable is usually when rent is received. For further explanation, please just hover over the title here. This is where you would specify any upfront lettings fees. Now, to show you how this is calculated, let's go over to the property. We'll click on Edit, and scrolling down, you'll see a 10% finder's fee. Now let's switch back to the tenancy we were creating earlier. And as you can see here, there's £1,200 in the lettings fee box. Now what the system's done is it's calculated the annual rent and it simply applied 10% on that. So if the rent's £1,000, it's going to times it by 12, which will be 12,000, and it will be 10% of 12,000. Now you may have other fee structures. For example, you may charge just a fixed fee, or perhaps 1 month or 2 months of rent. That could be configured in the control panel here. Okay, and now over to step 4. Although we give you the facility to send this information over to Tenant Shop, who's a utility management provider, it's recommended to do this in the previous section, which we covered in the tutorial earlier. Okay, a tenancy is now created. We've got 3 steps left, which is to get the landlord and tenants to sign an agreement digitally. we're going to collect the rent and deposit and then finalise by sending the landlord a statement. Let's go to print or email standard letters. Right, let's choose the AST, which is compatible with Signable. Now you're presented with several options, but in our case, we'll get this document signed digitally. Okay, the tenancy agreement that we're looking at here will be sent via a third-party digital signature provider, Signable. Signable supports multiple signatories, so each party needing to sign will appear here at the top, and as you can see, you can add more signatories. The AST that we're looking at here is an HTML document. Now, anywhere that needs to be signed, you could simply copy and paste the signature blocks here on the right into the document of where it needs to be signed. Right, back to the tenancy. The tenant's accounts could be found here, and the landlord's accounts could be seen here. Let's take a look at the tenant's accounts. As you can see from this screen, the tenant owes £1,000 rent and £800 deposit. Now notice that £200 has already been collected via the tenant step number 1 when we collected the holding deposit. Okay, now that we've seen the balances of the tenant, let's take a payment against those to clear the tenant's balance. Scrolling down, we can see that rent and deposit's due. Enter a description for the transaction and select the account which the money's going to, which is usually your client account. Going to the bottom right takes us back to the tenancy. Okay, so a quick recap: we've just sent off the contract to get signed and we've also received the funds from the tenant. If we now take a look at the landlord statement, we can see what's received, deducted, what's been paid, and the landlord's final balance. Now you can print or email a statement here, but before we do that, let's assume that we are going to pay some funds over to the landlord. So let's go over to Accounts, Properties by Landlord on the left, and select which landlords you would like to make a payment to. Select the box here to send out the statements in batch. Now a quick tip: before you pay the landlords in batch, you're able to quickly check the statement by clicking the link here. This gives us a chance to have a quick glance at the statement before making any payments. So all looks fine, let's proceed to pay. So the tenancy's been set up, you've received payments from a tenant, you've sent off the contracts to get signed, and the landlord's been paid, and you've sent a statement. Right, let me show you one last tip to keep a track of the lettings process. The column on the right gives you an at-a-glance view of the lettings progress. And here's a customizable checklist to keep a track of the tenancy's progress. Here's a quick recap on what we've just covered. Bye for now.